My name is Naomi Carter, and 8 years ago my family disowned me because I married a black man, not because he hurt me. Not because he lied to me or cheated on me or destroyed my future. They disowned me because of the color of his skin. But what they didn't know when they slammed that door in my face was this. The man they called a mistake would become the best thing that ever happened to me. And the daughter they threw away would one day become the woman they desperately needed. And when they finally came back begging for forgiveness, they didn't come because they loved me. They came because the life they mocked became the life they wanted access to. Before we get into this, if you're new here, take a second to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I read those comments every night. Now let me take you back to the summer I turned 25. The summer my mother looked me in the eye and told me that marrying the man I loved would make me dead to this family. I grew up in Ashford, Georgia. Population 12,000 on paper, but it felt smaller because everybody knew everybody's business. My father, Richard Carter, owned a hardware store downtown that had been in the family since before I was born. My mother, Elaine, ran our house like a military operation disguised as Southern hospitality. Everything in our home had rules. Towels folded a certain way, shoes lined up perfectly by the door. Appearances mattered more than feelings. What the church thought mattered more than what happened inside the house. My older brother Caleb was the pride of the family, football captain. Married his high school sweetheart at 23. Bought a ranch house 15 minutes from my parents. My younger sister Hannah was my mother's favorite. Pretty, outgoing, always knew exactly what to say to make adults adore her. Then there was me. The quiet middle child who spent more time reading than socializing. I was the girl who asked questions nobody wanted to answer. Why do we care what other people think so much? Why does church gossip matter? Why are some people treated differently in town? My mother hated those questions. She used to say, "Naomi, not every thought needs to be spoken aloud." What she really meant was stop making people uncomfortable. I left for Atlanta the second I graduated college because I knew if I stayed in Ashford another year, I would suffocate. Atlanta felt like another planet compared to my hometown. Nobody cared who my parents were. Nobody cared where I went to church. People minded their own business. I rented a tiny apartment with cracked countertops and loud neighbors, and I loved every second of it because for the first time in my life I felt free. I got a marketing job at a healthcare company downtown. The pay wasn't amazing, but it covered rent and groceries and gave me enough left over for takeout once a week if I budgeted carefully. That was the life I had when I met Jordan Mitchell. It happened on a Tuesday morning in our office lobby. I was carrying 2 coffees while trying to answer a text from Hannah at the same time. The lid popped off one cup and coffee spilled all over my white blouse. I just stood there staring at myself in horror because I had a presentation in 10 minutes. Then somebody handed me a stack of napkins and said, "That coffee had a personal issue with you." I looked up and saw him smiling at me, tall, broad shoulders, brown eyes so warm they immediately made you feel safe. He wore a navy suit with old white sneakers that looked like they had been through a war. I laughed so hard I almost spilled the second coffee too. "I hate this day already," I said. "It's only 8:15. You should give it time to get worse." That was Jordan. Calm, funny without trying too hard. The kind of man who made people relax around him naturally. He worked in IT consulting on the 10th floor of our building. 2 weeks later we had lunch together, then dinner. Then another dinner. Our first real date lasted 6 hours because neither of us wanted it to end. We sat in a little taco restaurant near Piedmont Park talking until the employees started stacking chairs around us. Jordan told me about growing up in Chicago with his mother Denise and grandmother Loretta. He said the women in his family taught him everything important about life before he turned 10. Respect people, work hard, never confuse pride with dignity. I told him about Ashford and how exhausting it was growing up in a place where everybody watched everybody else. He listened carefully to every word I said, not politely, not waiting for his turn to speak, actually listening. That was new for me. We dated for almost 2 years before I brought him home to meet my parents. Looking back now, I think part of me already knew it would end badly. I just didn't want to believe my own family could really reject someone for something so stupid. Jordan offered to stay in a hotel instead of my parents' house because he didn't want anyone uncomfortable. That alone should tell you what kind of man he was, always trying to make things easier for everybody else. My mother opened the front door and froze for half a second when she saw him standing beside me. It was tiny. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. But I did. Her smile disappeared for just a moment before she forced it back onto her face. "You must be Jordan," she said carefully. Jordan shook her hand politely. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for having me." My father barely looked at him during dinner. Caleb kept changing the subject anytime Jordan tried joining the conversation. Hannah stared openly like she was studying him for a school project. My mother kept asking strange questions disguised as polite curiosity. "Where did your family grow up? What neighborhood was it? What does your father do?" Every question had the same hidden meaning. "Are you good enough for us?" Jordan answered every question calmly, respectfully, better than I would have. Then dessert came and my mother finally stopped pretending. She set down her fork and looked at me. "Naomi, can you help me in the kitchen?" The second we were alone, she shut the kitchen door. "What are you doing?" She whispered sharply. "What?" "Do not act naive with me." Her face tightened. "You cannot seriously expect this family to accept this relationship. Not Jordan. Not the man I loved. Just this relationship, like it was some embarrassing situation she needed cleaned up quietly." "Mom, what exactly are you saying? People will talk." "About what?" "About you bringing a black man into this family." There it was. Direct, ugly, real. I remember staring at her because I genuinely could not believe the words had actually come out of her mouth. "You're joking." "No, Naomi, I'm protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" "Happiness?" Her voice dropped lower. "Your father's business depends on reputation. We have lived in this town for generations. You are throwing all of that away." I felt my chest tighten so hard it hurt to breathe. "I love him. You barely know him. I've been with him for 2 years, and there are thousands of perfectly good men you could have chosen instead." That sentence told me everything. Jordan could have been kind, loyal, brilliant, successful, loving, all of those things, and none of it mattered because in her eyes his skin canceled everything else out. I walked back into the dining room shaking with anger. Jordan looked at my face and immediately understood something had happened. "We're leaving," I said. My father finally spoke. "Sit down, Naomi." "No." Jordan stood without asking questions. We drove back to Atlanta mostly in silence. About halfway home, I started crying so hard I had to pull over. Jordan rubbed my back quietly while I cried into the steering wheel. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "You have nothing to apologize for. They humiliated you." "No," he said softly. "They embarrassed themselves." That was the thing about Jordan. He never carried bitterness the way I did. He understood racism without letting it poison him. 3 weeks later, he proposed in our apartment kitchen while smoke from burnt garlic bread filled the air because I forgot it was in the oven. He got down on one knee holding a tiny ring box and said, "I know life with me may cost you things, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life giving you more than you lose." I started crying before he even finished speaking. I said yes immediately. My mother called 2 days later after Hannah told her about the engagement. "If you marry him, don't come home again." Her voice sounded cold, calm, like she had rehearsed the sentence. "Mom, no. Listen carefully. If you go through with this wedding, you are no longer part of this family." Then she hung up. 25 years of being her daughter ended with a click. We got married at the courthouse in Atlanta on a rainy Thursday morning. Jordan's mother Denise flew in from Chicago carrying homemade peach cobbler and enough love to fill the entire room by herself. My family didn't come, not one of them. Jordan's best friend Malik took photos on his phone while Denise cried during the vows. Afterwards, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're ours now." I nearly broke down right there in the courthouse hallway because nobody in my own family had made me feel wanted in months. I mailed wedding photos to my parents anyway because hope makes people stupid sometimes. The envelope came back unopened 11 days later with return to sender stamped across the front in red ink. Jordan found me sitting on the apartment floor staring at it. He picked up the envelope carefully and set it on the table. "One day they're going to regret this." At the time I didn't believe him. The first year after the wedding was brutal. My family cut me off completely. No birthday calls. No Christmas cards. Nothing. Hannah blocked me online. Caleb unfriended me everywhere. Relatives stopped responding to messages because my mother had convinced half the town I betrayed the family. Jordan never once told me I should forgive them or get over it. He just loved me through it. When I cried on holidays, he held me. When I doubted myself, he reminded me who I was. When I apologized for the drama my family created, he said, "Naomi, love is not supposed to require permission." 2 years into our marriage, Jordan quit his consulting job to start his own cybersecurity company. Everybody thought he was crazy. We barely had savings. We worked from our second bedroom surrounded by cheap folding tables and tangled cords. I handle invoices and marketing after my full-time job. Jordan coded until 2 in the morning most nights. Some months we barely paid rent on time. But we were building something together that mattered. Then came Ava. Our daughter arrived screaming at 3:11 in the morning with Jordan's eyes and my stubbornness. Watching him hold her for the first time changed something in me permanently. He looked at that little girl like she was the greatest thing he had ever seen. I sent birth announcements to my parents. Both came back unopened. Jordan's mother drove 9 hours to meet Ava the next day. She cooked for us, cleaned the apartment, rocked the baby so we could sleep. She loved us loudly, generously, without conditions. My own mother missed all of it because her pride mattered more than her daughter. When Ava turned 4, Jordan's company exploded. A major hospital network hired his firm after a data breach made national news. Then another client came. Then another. Investors started calling nonstop. Within 2 years, his company had over 60 employees. We bought a beautiful house in Buckhead with huge windows and a backyard swing set for Ava. By then, I had stopped trying with my family completely. No more cards, no more calls. No more begging people to love me correctly. Then one evening my phone rang while we hosted a company dinner. "Mom." First call in almost 6 years. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then the voicemail notification appeared. I listened upstairs alone. "Naomi, I heard Jordan's company is doing very well. No hello, no apology, straight to business. Your father's store is struggling. We may lose the house. Maybe it's time to put the past behind us and act like family again." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. 6 years of silence and suddenly now she wanted family again. Jordan found me sitting on the bed afterward. "What happened?" I handed him the phone silently. He listened, sighed softly, and handed it back. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "Because now you know for sure. He was right." Some tiny part of me still hoped maybe my mother missed me. But her first contact in years was about money. That told me everything. 2 days later, Hannah messaged me online. "Hey sis. We should reconnect. Mom says Jordan's business is amazing now. Proud of you guys." Proud. The same people who skipped our wedding were suddenly proud. I ignored the message. Then my father called. Hearing his voice after so many years felt strange, smaller somehow. "Your mother just wants the family together again," he said carefully. Did she want that when she returned pictures of her granddaughter unopened? Silence. Dad, where were you all those years? He exhaled slowly. Things got complicated. No, racism was not complicated. Silence was not complicated. Choosing comfort over your daughter was not complicated. It was a decision. Jordan never pressured me about what to do. He said if I wanted to reconnect, he would support it. If I wanted to walk away forever, he would support that too. That was the difference between him and my family. His love didn't come with conditions. A month later, my mother showed up at our house unannounced. I opened the door and almost didn't recognize her. Older, smaller, but her eyes immediately scanned the house behind me. The staircase, the floors, the expensive artwork. Calculating. Naomi, she whispered dramatically, tears instantly filling her eyes. My mother could cry on command better than most actresses. Mom, can I come in? I should have said no. But part of me still wanted answers, so I stepped aside. She walked slowly through the house, taking everything in. When Ava ran into the room holding crayons, my mother froze. This is Ava, I said carefully. Ava smiled politely. Hi. My mother started crying harder. She looks just like you did. For one dangerous second, I almost believed this could be fixed. Then she ruined it. Your father and I have been under terrible stress. Medical bills. The store is failing. We thought maybe family could help family. There it was again. Money. Always money. Jordan walked into the kitchen then, calm as ever. Polite as ever. He shook my mother's hand even though this woman spent years insulting him behind his back. Mrs. Carter. Jordan. She actually sounded nervous around him now. Funny how money changes people. We sat at the kitchen table. My mother pulled printed financial statements from her purse. Debt. Mortgage balances. Medical bills. She had literally prepared a presentation. $200,000. That was the number she wanted. She explained it calmly, like asking for sugar from a neighbor. Jordan stayed quiet beside me, waiting, supporting. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. If Jordan worked at a grocery store instead of owning a company, would you be sitting here right now? My mother's face tightened immediately. That's unfair. Answer the question. Silence. Then the tiniest shake of her head. There it was. Truth. Ugly, honest. She didn't come because she loved me. She came because success made my marriage acceptable. Money had somehow erased Jordan's skin color in her mind. I suddenly felt exhausted. You know what hurts the most? I asked quietly. It's not that you hated my husband. It's that you were willing to lose me because of it. Tears slid down her face. I thought I was protecting the family. From what? Jordan asked softly. Love? My mother looked at him then. Really looked at him for maybe the first time in her life. I was wrong, she whispered. Jordan nodded once. Yes, you were. No anger, no cruelty. Just truth. And somehow that hit harder than yelling ever could. My mother stayed another hour trying to explain herself without actually taking responsibility. Before leaving, she hugged Ava goodbye. Ava hugged her back because children are innocent like that. After the door closed, I stood staring at the financial papers on the kitchen table. Jordan wrapped his arms around me from behind. What do you want to do? I thought carefully. About every holiday they ignored. Every cruel whisper in that small Georgia town. Every night I cried because my own family rejected the man I loved. Then I looked around the kitchen we built together. The daughter we raised together. The life we fought for together. Nothing, I said finally. People don't get access to my life just because they suddenly see value in it. We eventually helped my father anyway. Not because my mother demanded it. Because Jordan secretly paid for his surgery months later without telling anybody. That was who he was. And even to people who didn't deserve it. My father cried when he found out. Real crying this time. Real shame. Slowly we rebuilt something fragile between us. Phone calls. occasional visits. But my mother never fully understood the damage she caused because part of her still believed she had been justified at the beginning. Hannah stayed distant. Caleb barely spoke to me at all. Some relationships never recover completely, and honestly, that's okay. Because here's what I learned. Family is not the people who only love you when your choices make them comfortable. Love is not love if it disappears the second someone looks different than expected. And success does not erase racism. It just teaches people how to hide it better. The man my family rejected became the father of my child, the builder of my future, and the person who taught me what unconditional love actually looks like. They thought I was ruining my life when I married him. In reality, I was finally saving it. And if you're listening to this while carrying the pain of being rejected for who you love, hear me carefully. The people who truly love you will never ask you to choose between your happiness and their approval. Never. That is my story. If this touched you, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you believe love should never come with conditions, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.